We are back with another episode of Mock Draft Mondays, and today Matt is back in the hot seat. And what do you do with the third pick after Bobby Witt and Aaron Judge are off the board? We find out today on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominick Martino. You can find me on Twitter at DomMartinoFB. Here, as always, is my brother, my co-host, my partner in crime, Matthew Ahne. You can find him on Twitter at Matthew_Ahne. If you're watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit that little bell below. It will subscribe you to the channel and give you a notification every time we drop a new episode. Or if you're listening on the audio side on a platform like Apple or Spotify that allows 5-star ratings and reviews, we would truly appreciate it if you could do that for us. And lastly, most importantly to us and you guys this time of year, give us a chance on the Subtext platform. Through Subtext, it's an in-depth, personalized experience, giving you so much more than we could offer in this 30-minute episode. And if you are interested in joining us on Subtext, link is in bio wherever you're listening, watching, and it's available on any of our social media platforms. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started today. And all right, Matt, I'm going to pass it off to you, brother. You know, we're back with Mock Draft Mondays, third pick. What are we doing today, man? How'd it go?
Well, for starters, just to let everybody know, it's a 5x5 head-to-head Roto league, and it's a Yahoo default. So, you know, that's your first, second, third shorts, catcher, 3 OFs, 2 UTs, 2 starting pitchers, 2 relief pitchers, and then 4 pitching slots, and then 5 bench. That's what you get right off the bat. Let me bring the team up for you. So I was picking out of the third hole, and wildly enough, Bobby Witt Jr. and Aaron Judge was your first 2 picks. It literally went 1-2 with Witt and then Aaron Judge. So then that left me with a choice. I can go a positional player, or I could just pick the best player on the board, and that's Shohei Ohtani. And I want Shohei Ohtani to kind of see kind of where and how hard it's going to be to kind of build a team with having Ohtani and not having an actual position to fill, because there is severe drop-offs at all these positions except for UT, because clearly there's plenty. You could use anybody there. So it kind of limits you, and the experience was a little rough. I really had to give up on certain things in order to fill out the team to where I feel comfortable, and we're going to get into that, right? So if you're not watching on YouTube and you can't see the team, I'll kind of break it down. I'll go round by round, and then I'll tell you how I'm sitting down. So Shohei Ohtani off the board at number 3 overall, then Jackson Chourio, Trey Turner, James Wood, Ozzie Albies, Luis Castillo, Hunter Green, Luis Roberts, Tanner Bybee, Vinny Pasquantino, Pete Fairbanks, Shane McClanahan, Brandon Wu, and Brian Wu. I do that every time. Josh Young, Jason Dominguez, Tyler O'Neill, Spencer Arrighetti, the Yeti himself, Kenley Jansen, Ronel Blanco, Kerry Carpenter, Christian Encarnacion Strand, Brandon Woodruff, and Sean Murphy. So there's a lot of holes in this lineup, but there's also a lot of strength. So even though I was able to go out and, pick Ohtani, I really had to capitalize at my biggest fears. And that's usually second base, shortstop, and outfield. And that's what I focused on for my next 4 picks. I went Jackson Chourio as my next pick, and I covered my first OF, which I'm not mad at. I have him ranked as my number 12 overall outfielder. Then I got Trey Turner on the turnaround, which was really nice. Got him as one of my top shortstops on the year. Then I was able to swing around and grab James Wood, who I'm a big fan of. I got him ranked like 15 at the position. Then I was like, instead of going pitcher where I usually do in the 4th round, 5th round, I waited another round and I ended up grabbing Ozzie Albies instead. Covered my second base, and now I kind of have a lot of the positional drop-off positions at covered, right? And I'm like, all right, cool. Now I can start going and get my pitching. And then that's what I did. But I gave up by doing that and grabbing Ozzie Albies, which if you look at by how the draft went, I made the right choice, because right after that, second base Jordan Westberg, who I always hold out for, went. And then that was the last of the Mohegans in terms of second base and at third. So I pretty much was done there. So I made the right choice in grabbing Ozzie Albies. And then I just went Luis Castillo and Hunter Green. Unfortunately, There's no real other pitchers. I passed up on Yamamoto, which could have been my one, but I wanted to do a team where I haven't drafted all the same pitching guys. That was part of it too, and I wanted to see how the team would look. Yamamoto still has a couple question marks too. That even though I have him so highly ranked, makes him very risky. And with the build that I have, I need to be as strong as possible. So Luis Castillo, who even though had a poor season, I don't think had too poor of a season, and also too a guy that's been an SP1 for like the last 5 years doesn't just drop off like that at still the age that he is. There's still time. Then Hunter Green, who I think is on the rise, who could finish as an SP1. I took the shot on that, and I think that that's a strong 1-2 punch. Obviously, you'd like to have a stronger SP1, but the options weren't going to be there for me, truthfully. After that, Luis Robert had to go and grab my third outfielder, and I feel like I did a very good job grabbing him. You know, quite honestly, if he plays a full season, we see what 2023 did. You're pretty much gold. My outfield is pretty much solid. He steals bases. He hits 40 home run upside. The only thing that's going to be lacking is runs and ribs, and that's only if he does not get traded. That's the thing. I'm going to bank on him getting traded. I think by trade deadline, he's going to be moved to another team. So that's where I think I'll get it. And he'll most likely go to the Dodgers, and I'll really have one of the best players in the league. But that's just a joke, by the way. I have no idea where he's going to go. But after that, you look at the rest of this team, and I had to really do some damage control. But I feel like, okay, my SP3, let me grab Tanner Bybee. He's a pitcher, usually an SP2, a low end SP2, high end SP3, scooped him up as my 3, and I was like, bet. And after that, I rounded out my team with Vinny Pasquantino at first, and I said, all right, no doubt. Now, the only positions for batting that I need, truthfully, to cover is really just third and catcher, which we all know what we do at catcher here on the show. We draft it as one of the last picks. But third, we all know that I love Josh Young, and I was able to wait a while. And because I did that, I was able to really round out this team. I think Josh Young is going to be a stud. I have Josh Young ranked right now at the position at third base number 9 overall. And I think he's going to be great because the options that could have been there was like people saying, oh, Junior Caminero is way higher in the ADP, but yet you're going to bank on a guy that, you've really not seen too much out of this kid, even though I believe in the prospect. I think it's going to be a really slow burn before he really gets started. And you're just dealing with a lot of unknown. We could also just see another Jackson Holiday situation. I just didn't want to do it, especially with the build that I'm doing, where I've seen Josh Young flourish in the MLB and in the bigs. And I think that's a safer bet. It's really just been injury that's held him back. So I think it's a stronger one, and you can always build out from injury and kind of hold yourself off as long as it's not a season ending. So Josh Young, I feel, was a great person to wait on, and I feel like I made the right choice. Then, I picked up my first closer in round 11 of Pete Fairbanks, who I think is going to have the closer position, at least for now, in Tampa, which I think is going to be the right move. He's a stud. He just has to stay healthy as well. And then I went after Shane McClanahan, who I'm high on. I think is going to be ready for spring training right off the bat. And I think is going to be a stud. Also has that SP1 upside as well, as long as we don't deal with any of the injuries that we've seen. And, hopefully the recovery from TJ has gone well. Then I picked up Brian Wu. And right after I double tapped it. And I think Brian Wu is a great compliment as, you're pretty much your SP5, right? And you can't really go wrong with him as your 5. And what we saw from him when he was healthy last year was absolutely incredible. And I think that he's a strong SP5 at this point. And I feel like I really do have a good pitching core at that point. Then I got Josh Young in the round 14, my third baseman in the round 14. That is why I was able to recover from the team that I have. Then I scooped up Jason Dominguez as my second UT, because we all forget I have Shohei Ohtani. Now, Dominguez has all the upside in the world, but he also can bust. And if you look at my bench, you'll see what I did in those regards too. Went and scooped him up right after Tyler O'Neill. To back it up right there. A guy has power. I like the team he's on now. I think there's a lot of upside there. Tyler O'Neill is going to hit home runs for days, and he just needs to stay on the field. That's really just always been his thing. Then I picked up Arrighetti, finished off my pitching at my SP6. I love this kid. I think he's going to be stud. I think he's going to finish well above where I backed him. The ROP is going to be phenomenal. And then Kenley Jansen. I needed a closer, and I needed somebody a name that I think possibly will have the actual closing job. As to where, we're not sure yet today. I don't foresee him going back to the Dodgers because he wants to, one, get paid, and two, be in a position where, he's going to get saves. So I'm hoping he lands on a team where he's not going to be a setup man. He's going to be a true.
I saw rumors with Diamondbacks and Tigers, and I think either of those teams he'd definitely start out at least a closer.
And that's tasty right there. And that would be stellar because of the price and because of, how I formed this team. And then, we finished out like Ronel Blanco, who I'm a big fan of. And I think that he's going to be able to, not exactly repeat, probably more like a 3.5 ERA with the same amount of strikeouts and the whip being just as good. Kerry Carpenter, another outfielder depth, and then Christian Encarnacion Strand, which we love on the show. Then my second to last pick of the draft, because I still haven't drafted a catcher, which at this point is my last pick, Brandon Woodruff. Again, if you watched our last episode, he's hurt. Probably not going to start the season off. You put him on your IL. And I'm picking up Rhett Lauder from the Cincinnati Reds. And then obviously picked up Sean Murphy as my catcher. But guys, coming up next, we're going to be hearing what Dom thinks and all that wonderful stuff. But, just don't roast me too bad. Coming up next.
And all right, when the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I personally love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. And real quick, folks, with all of the crazy trades going on in the NBA, Luka Doncic headed to the Lakers, Jimmy Butler already playing games for the Warriors, and Brandon Ingram headed over to the Raptors. There's so many to bet on. So right now, new customers can bet $100 and get 100. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And then once again, folks, I want to talk to you guys about the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, Diamond Club, on the Subtext platform. It's going to be your ultimate fantasy baseball companion as this offseason continues to unfold. You're going to rely on Matt and I for our dynamic content, and you're going to get real-time alerts right to your phone, including our 2025 rankings, sleepers, breakouts, bust, and so much more. So stay ahead of your fantasy league by joining the Diamond Club on Subtext, where the path to your victories begin. Subscribe now and elevate your fantasy baseball experience to a new level. And if you are interested in joining us, the link to join us on Subtext is in our bio wherever you're listening, watching, and it's available on any of our social media platforms. And all right, Matt, let's jump into this team here and let's break it down. I think it's cool that you went with Ohtani with the first pick. It always throws that monkey wrench if what do I do with my team when I start off with one of the best players in the game, but I only can play him at utility. I like the boldness with Chourio. The outfielder run was crazy. I'll be honest. I was looking at your draft board. The outfielder run was wild. So to grab Chourio, who is going to be one of the breakout stars of 2025, I do like that. The outfield in general, though, it does get a little bit risky. The next young blood, you go with James Wood. I'm not sure if he was there. You'd have to pull up the draft board. I would have liked somebody like a Teoscar Hernandez. If he was not there, somebody just like that to put a little bit more stability. And then Luis Robert could either hit 38 home runs and be one of the best players in baseball, or he gets hurt like normal. And hopefully he gets traded from those White Sox because that's going to do a lot for his fantasy value. But right now, even if Luis Robert's hitting those home runs, I think it's going to be a lot of solo shots. So I do like that you recovered with the outfield of not getting one early, but just the three of them combined, I just think it leaves a lot of question marks there. We'll move on to the infield. We know how much I love Vinny P. I don't even think that needs to be talked about. Trey Turner, one of the stars of the game. You can't argue with Trey Turner. Definitely, I think he's value going in the third round, to be honest. I think that's a good pick there where you got him. Ozzy Albies, I like the fifth round. Fifth round's a good spot for him. It's not bad. I'm not a huge fan of him, but he could be a 30 home run, 260 guy in a great lineup as long as he stays healthy. Ozzy Albies, solid pick for where you got him. Can't argue that. Josh Young to start at third. I like him better as a utility type of bat, but you kind of had to construct your team a little bit differently with Ohtani in there. So it's not the worst, but I also don't like the fact he didn't back him up. I would have loved if he would have grabbed another third baseman at some point to throw in there. Just back him up, just because he's a little bit risky. With coming back from the wrist injury, let's see how the power looks from him. He could be really good. I do like him as well, Matt. If anyone's watching that's watched any of our mock drafts episodes, I've taken a lot of Josh Young myself. Like him better as a utility than third baseman, but dealing with what you had to deal with, not too bad there. Sean Murphy at catcher, that's great. Love him. I'm going to probably have a lot of Sean Murphy myself because, Matt and I always wait for our catchers, and that's where you really could find some really good value with your team. So great job there. We talked about Ohtani a little bit. Jason Dominguez, great job. Love Jason Dominguez as utility bat. I think he's going to be so much more than expected. I honestly think there's a world where he winds up starting in your outfield. I'm just really high on him. I think he's going to play a big role for the Yankees this year. At least maybe it's me, my Yankee fan, coming out and being wishful thinking. But I think Jason Dominguez is going to be great this year. Tyler O'Neill, I've been drafting him a lot more recently too. I've moved him up in my outfielder rankings. A lot of pop in that bat. They're moving the wall in left field. In Baltimore, he's going to be really good. It's going to be a lot of power in that bat, and I think he's going to get a good spot in that lineup too. So I think Tyler O'Neill is going to be very, very good. Strand, another guy we draft a lot. We've talked about him. Kerry Carpenter, same thing. Both young bats that I think are going to thrive in their lineups. So I do like your bench bats. Definitely very strong. Just like I said, I would have loved if you would have switched one of those guys out for another third baseman there just to back up Josh Young. But otherwise, very, very good there. Getting a couple more outfielders, just to back up the question marks you do have there with a couple of the starters. Roll into the pitching. This is where I think things get a little bit shaky. Like I said, as much as I love Ozzie Albies and the value got there, probably would have jumped in. I think I saw when I was looking at it, I think Blake Snell was there. I might have just grabbed Blake Snell at the top and then kind of even things out from there. You could have, as much as a second baseman falls off a cliff, I feel like if you're jumping off that cliff, there are guys, we talk about like the Nico Horners and I like Luis Garcia Jr. and some of those second basemen that go a little bit later. I don't think they kill you at the position. So I might have done something like that. Luis Castillo is great, but I like him as a 2. Hunter Green also I think is very, very good. Like him as a little bit closer to like a 3. You do balance it out though. I love Bybee. Bybee's also like another 3, so you kind of almost find a little bit of balance there. Shane McClanahan's is the scratch-off card, right? He's that, if he's Shane O'Mac and he's got that SP1 upside, man, if he's rocking and rolling, that takes your team to another level. I feel like we've talked about Brian Wu a lot. I think it was like his last, I think it was last like 11 starts where he slowed down. Lee started to figure out him a little bit. Let's see how he bounces back. I'm not a huge Brian Wu guy. But that's, at that point, you're kind of just taking your guys there. I love Spencer Arrighetti. I've taken a lot of him. Another scratch off in Brandon Woodruff to get him with your last pick and be able to throw him on the IL and, just replace him with whoever you may please. I can't get mad at that. The closer situation, Matt, though, I'm sorry. I got to give you F on the closer situation, man. I don't think Fairbanks gets a lot of saves on a Tampa Bay team. They always move him around. They always move that. They play that bullpen very poorly. And then Jansen doesn't have a team yet. Let's see where he lands. It's just very, very, very questionable closer situation. Overall, like the bats, like I said, Young just would have liked to back him up, but don't really have too much other problems there. The arms would have liked them to be a little bit stronger, but once again, the Ohtani throws a big monkey wrench into that. With that being said, Matt, you've been on a roll lately. You really were. I'm giving this one like a C. Maybe a C minus, probably closer to a C, somewhere in the middle there. But it's a good team. I just think there's a lot of question marks here where we got to fill those gaps. And then the whole thing is you throw Woodruff on the IL. Are we picking up a closer? Are we picking up another starter? I think we got to find out. We got to find out where we're going with it, to be honest with you. Because like I said, we're both very talented at making pickups off the waiver wire, but I think this one leaves you with some work to be done, especially with the pitching. I think the bats you can live off the waiver wire. Maybe either you make a move, you make an early trade for another third baseman to back up Young, or you grab whoever's hot off the waiver wire. I think we can live with that. But the pitching is, I think, where we got to figure out the questions of what we're going to do there. But with that being said, before Mac jumps in and he gives his rebuttal and then we kind of put a little bow on this episode, we do have one more quick break for you guys. All right, Matt, let's jump back in here and give you a little chance to rebuttal here.
So, I mean, I hear you with the saves situation, but like being that it's like a Roto league, I mean, a head-to-head league, I don't really care. Like, I got to just manufacture.
You can punt them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can punt it, I can manufacture it, right? I could stream, but based off of injuries and things like that. Yeah, Pete Fairbanks might get moved around a bit, but I think he'll at least come away with like a save a week, if not a save and a half a week. There's that world and that possibility. There's still 6 games in a week, and he's going to get at least one of those, if not two. Kenley Jansen, it was an upside play. If not, I pretty much did punt it. It is what it is. Like I don't really care because I'm going to pick up what do you call it, an SP when I put Woodruff to the IL. It's not even a question. There's a lot of guys that are going to be available after this that I liked anyway. That I was sitting there like there was Mackenzie Gore, who I think has a lot of upside this year. There was Rhett Lauder, who I'm really high on this year. There is a lot of sneaky little arms that are later that aren't even being drafted that are free 99 with only a 5 bench league that you can easily go in and do it. Plus, honestly, you do a 2-start pitch streaming week every single week, and I could still figure this out.
That's always the move. That's always the move.
Yeah, like there's just the biggest hole in my pitching, and I admit it. There's no strong SP1, but I have a lot of stabilization at the top there. Luis Castillo, Hunter Green, and Tanner Bybee. And even Brian Wu. Yes, his last 11 weeks were kind of like up and down, and I get that, but he was also battling through injuries. He was coming on and off the IL, and I don't think he was actually right coming off of it. But as a whole, they still finished the season, even with your last 11 games being so like, what's the word, volatile, I guess I want to say. He still finished with a sub-3 ERA. He actually had a really good season, regardless of the fact. I am a big fan of him, and you know what? Even if Brandon Woodruff doesn't come back at all, I still can figure it all out. Now, having another third baseman, it was hard. Like, so third base dropped off like crazy. There was not many options out there in general. After the top, like, I would say 10 that get drafted, I'm not like a Matt Chapman guy. I would have had to have picked him like 4 rounds earlier, and then I really would have been in a hole, right? If I would have just had Matt Chapman, who I don't think is a real good option at third base. So I'll take the upside with Young. Young is the most proven, too, out of the later round guys that could be consistent. And you say the wrist injury, but the wrist injury is only applicable when they come right back from off the IL and they start playing. You saw it with Freddie Freeman. You saw it with other players where they broke that wrist, and then they came back during that season. The power was zapped. But that next year, that power was right on back. So I don't foresee that being an issue going into 2025 where he didn't even play at all, let alone he's now what, 5 months removed from the injury, and I believe the little small wrist surgery. I think he's just going to be just fine. And then, you know what? It is what it is. And then we talk about my outfield, but at the same time, we could switch guys in and out of that, and we could move guy to a UT and just make the lineup look a little bit better, right? Say I just move James Wood to UT. I put, I don't know, Tyler O'Neill out there and put Jason Dominguez on the bench.
Yeah, no, your bench outfielders definitely make up for any question marks that are there. Like I said, I think between Dominguez, O'Neill, and Carpenter, even if you get one of those guys to be above average, which I think there's a good chance that 2, maybe even all 3 of them thrive for maybe not all at the same time, but throughout the season, that it works out. I do like what you did there.
Yeah, and then like we even look at it a little bit like deeper into this, right? Say like we were talking about Ozzy Albies and how you would have liked me to pick a pitcher too, but like even if I did, say I got Blake Snell or Kirby, those would have been my 2 options right there. I probably would have leaned Kirby for more safety net because of how I had to go, right? Second base was gone, like 100% gone. Like I'm not getting Jordan Westberg. I would have had a Nico Horner. If I would have had Nico Horner on this team over Ozzy Albies, I think we would have not liked this team at all. Because then
I'll say this. I think if you skip on Albies and you get Luis Garcia, or in my opinion, I know you're not a Luis Garcia guy, but if you get a Luis Garcia or a Horner and you put Snell at the top of this lineup and you take Wu out of there, I think it looks so much better because then you go Snell 1, Castillo 2, Hunter Green 3, Bybee 4, McClanahan 5, Arrighetti 6. To me, that's just that's a don't mess with me type, lineup. And if you look at numbers last year, Luis Garcia and Ozzy Albies numbers aren't that far off. And I know Ozzy Albies has the capability of being a better player than Luis Garcia does, obviously in that lineup. But then again, Ozzy Albies has injury history, and he didn't have a great year last year, even when he was healthy.
I mean, I hear you, but even if I were to do that, right, I still would have had to triple tap then, and even to have that situation. And by no means with the way this team is forming, there's no way I could triple tap. So I'm putting myself at a disadvantage by not going at the higher tier at that position. And the highest point of output was going with Ozzy Albies. The return on the ROP is better than going chasing the Garcia, especially with me already waiting around till pick 14 for my third baseman because there was nobody out there either.
I just think the difference between Snell and Wu is a bigger difference than between Ozzy Albies and Garcia. That's just my thought process behind it.
I mean, I could totally hear you. I would have preferred truthfully over Albies entirely, and I would have been happy with a Garcia or a Horner if I would have gotten a third baseman. But the thing is, there was no third baseman. I mean, I could have went Jordan Westberg, but I have Ozzy Albies ranked higher.
Yeah. No, I hear you on that, because even if you take Westberg there and put him at third, your team doesn't look as good. That's what I said. I think the pitcher there makes sense, but that's just me. Like we said, Matt and I, and then if you follow us on YouTube or anywhere, subtext, we'll show you guys how to be very good at pitching streaming, especially Matt. He's especially very good at that. Got the pitcher whisper nickname for a reason. So we could show you guys how to do that as well, and that's why Matt can build a team like this where, hey, you know what? He may not have a bona fide one, but if Shane McClanahan comes back and does his thing, he could be an ace. And then, like I said, playing that waiver wire, there's always one or two. There's always one of those two aces every year that sneak up off the waiver wire. And then if you're locked on with us here, we'll help you find those guys out throughout the season.
Yeah, and last year there was 5. That's the craziest thing. Yeah. There was 5 pitchers that you picked up last year that you could have honestly just went off with. Arrigetti's one of them. You had Ronel Blanco last year. You had
Seth Lugo wasn't drafted in some leagues.
Yeah, yep. Paul Skeens, because unless somebody stashed him for half the season, which most redraft leagues are not doing that. Paul Skeens, that's 4, and then I'm forgetting.
There's a bunch of them. And I'll say this, and I think if the ball plays the same way it did last year, where it's a little bit more friendly towards the pitchers, there'll be more. There'll be plenty. Pitching is gonna supersede hitting. So like in this draft where Matt did go 5 talented hitters, that makes of a better strategy here in 2025 than in previous years, because you can supplement the hitting off the waiver wire. It's going to be a lot harder to supplement really good bats off the waiver wire. Like we just railed off 4 starting pitchers that were really good off the waiver wire. Honestly, I can't think of like multiple great bats that came off the waiver wire last year. It's very harder to manufacture the hitting categories off the waiver wire than it is the pitching categories.
Yeah. And there's that. And then also, too, you got to look at what I did, too. Even let's look at like pitching versus categories versus hitting. Right. So even though I'm not strong in saves, my stolen base output is going to be redonkulous. You look at the Ozzy Albies, who's probably going to chip in about 15 to 20. You got Trey Turner with upside of 20 stolen bases. You got Jackson Churio. You got James Wood. And you got
Luis Robert. 30 still if you wanted to. Like I'm pretty sure the sprint speed is still crazy. I'm going to double check that as you talk.
And then you look at Ohtani's stolen base output as well. Like you look at all that in terms of stolen bases. I have that category pretty much locked down week in and week out, which that'll make up for me not having saves. So if you're good
Matt, I just want to throw this out there for the people. Trey Turner last year was still in the 96th percentile of sprint speed. Still one of the fastest players in all of baseball. If they let him, he can go out there and still steal 30 bags if he wanted to.
Well, that's the question, though, right? It is that, and that's more of a methodology of the Phillies, right? Are they going to let him go and run? And that's the thing where I don't think they're going to. So 20, 25, I think might be the cap, and 25 is like the high ceiling. I think we're looking at more like 17 to 20, which I'm still happy with.
Also, don't forget, he missed some time last year. Last year, he only played 505 games. In 2022 and 23, respectively, he stole 27 bags and 30 bags. So I think if he gets the at-bats and he plays, I think he can definitely get to 30.
There's a world. It's just really, I'm not a fan of I'm also not a fan of the Phillies manager, but that's a whole nother
episode.
Yeah. I could literally spend 30 minutes just poo-pooing all over him. But you look at the team as a whole, and even though you're going to give it a CC minus, and
I leave it at a C.
Yeah.
I leave it at a C.
I think this is more on like a B level, and it's not just because I drafted it. I look at just even though I gave up on saves, you don't need to be a 10 category contributor. You just have to be really good in 7 week in and week out.
Did you take Fairbanks over Romano?
Romano wasn't even there.
Yeah, I was gonna say he was gone at that point because I know it's your boy.
Yeah. I mean, Romano wasn't even. It was like an afterthought too. Like it is what it is. But again, I don't even care. I don't even care. I did not care about saves. Right after I drafted Ohtani, I go, I'm going to have to give up on something. And
Yeah.
I already have so many stolen bases locked in with just Ohtani alone. I'm just going to focus on that. And I moved on. And you just got to do that. You got to decide, okay, how am I going to win this league? Okay, I'm gonna out my SB output is gonna be good. I'm going to compete in every other
And like
category.
I said, Matt, there's a world where Dominguez, O'Neill, and Carpenter are all rocking and rolling, and you easily move one of them for a closer, and you're fine. If you do that, and then you pick up a closer, because obviously all the time there's closers that come off the waiver wire. That's one thing you can always get off the waiver wire.
Yes.
With Fairbanks, I think you're fine.
One injury from any of the injury prone
Yeah.
closers this year, and I'm gold too.
Which is going to happen in like the first 2 weeks. It always happens. Or somebody's getting bombed. There's going to be a closer that's getting rocked, and they're going to be like, all right, get him out of here. And then as long as you're with us here at Locked On and you're on the subtext, we're going to make sure you have those closers like we do.
Yeah. I was actually looking for Liam Hendricks, and he went 2 picks before I was going, and I was like, son of a gun. That was Liam Hendricks there. I would have been this would have been just fine, but I just missed out on him because everybody's forgetting about him too. He's going real late right now.
Yeah, him and Chapman. I'm excited to see that battle in spring training. I honestly think it might even be a timeshare if they just play the matchups with him and Chapman. They both wind up with 20-25 saves.
I don't even think Chapman's a factor. Liam Hendricks was the best closer in baseball until he got diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Chapman was good last year. Chapman had a really good year this year. We haven't seen Hendrick in about 2 years.
Yeah,
if I remember correctly.
No, he came in the end of last year, and he was looking mighty fierce. And Chapman was up and down, and honestly couldn't even keep the job over in Pittsburgh over Bednar. They were mixing in other closers in Pittsburgh, so Chapman he was getting used more in relief situation as setup.
Hendrick hasn't pitched since 2023.
Oh, I could have sworn he got in there. Anyway, guys, please like, subscribe, comment, rate, review, do everything you humanly can to share this show. Quite honestly, you're only as good as everybody sharing the same information and then beating out your friends. So, guys, when you're done checking us out, check out our boy over at Locked On MLB, Sully. He puts on a great show. Promise you won't be disappointed. Peace out, guys.
Sure.